All right, hey friends, how you doing? This is Kyle Brown here. I'm with my good friend Katy Bray, and we're going to go over some really cool stuff related to going from fear in this type of crisis towards being fit, and a really whole new expansion on the definition of what fit really is, far beyond just being physically fit. Because if you're physically fit and you're mentally, emotionally weak, then it's not going to get you where you want to go. And if you're energetically closed and selfish, it's not going to get you where you want to go right now. So we're going to completely redefine fit and give you a whole different spin on it. Want to give you a little background quick first on my good friend Katy here. She is a lifelong clairvoyant, an energy worker. She's a gifted empath who's really got this direct and loving approach. It's been truly transformational for her friendships, for her clients, and she guides them to achieve next level success with greater confidence and authenticity. Background wise, she's a Vedic master, an herbalist, a student of Tantra, and a dancer. Her body of work is called energy architecture. I really love how she takes a lot of the energetic stuff and makes it completely practical and usable in everyday life and also in business. And she's worked with thousands of people and really started to reveal that there's a common energy patterns that people who confront themselves or they're confronted with on a spiritual journey. She's led more than 100 groups, teaching participants how to become more energy literate. She's an author, a speaker, and a faculty at the Shift Network, and a catalyst for all those who seek her counsel. And in addition to that, one thing that you'll learn quick is this girl has an incredible sense of humor. So if
No, for
you
sure.
if you don't know Katy, just seeing the stuff that she shares on social media to understand that, to me, most of the most enlightened people I know find comedy amidst chaos, and see just that when you have a sense of humor, regardless of what's going on, you can really overcome anything. I'd love to get a little sense of sort of, you're working from home right now. You've got your kids at home right now. You've got life going on right now. There's lots of what would be considered earthly chaos going on right now. How are you fitting in day-to-day life and whatnot, keeping your sense of humor?
That's the first joke, right? No. Um, I think one thing I want to say first and foremost is this idea of balance, I think, is bogus. And I think it's given a lot of us, if we look at balance, let me say it this way. If we look at balance from just sort of a superficial or just at a glance, it feels a lot more like, oh, everything needs to be level, tit for tat, everything has to be even Stevens. And I think that is such a bogus aim. My strive is for harmony. And so there are certain days where my family is going to take more attention, and I just am at peace with that. There are days where my work is going to take more attention, and I will be at peace with that. So I think first and foremost, that's really the way that I've been rolling with all of this, is that I'm so aware of what the next moment is asking of me, that I'm really just listening. So, for some people, it's funny, I keep calling them I love them, but my needy extroverted friends who all they want to do right now is have like Zoom calls because it's time to like chat and connect. And because we can't see each other in person, I'm going, I don't normally see you in person this much. I'm still in my like current like workload. I have all my regular clients and I've got my family home. Like, no. So honestly, for me, that's actually been the hardest part, where it's, my friends who are extroverted, who do need a sense of connection, who want to spend a little extra time. I'm finding that I do have to set up some, the word that a lot of people use would be boundaries, but I really do have to be aware of how I'm taking care of myself and what is going to nourish me. And I think one of the many big calls to action right now is for people to really be self-guided and to know what is going to be the most nourishing for them, because the most nourishing for ourselves is ultimately going to nourish everyone else around us. And I think we know that story, but I think we're really getting a different sense of it now.
It's a really interesting psychological phenomenon. We talk with parenting sometimes. You have the idea of reverse psychology and how you can utilize that to get what you want and manipulate. I almost feel like society was told, hey, don't be healthy, don't go outside and exercise. And now they're like, all right, that's it. I'm putting down my devices. I'm connecting with friends. I'm going to call everybody I know, and I'm going to tell them how much they love them. So there.
Totally. I know. It's true. And it's awesome. What's funny though is we're already a family who aren't like super glued to electronics. We have dinner together every night. I make meals from scratch every day, so we're already sort of that way. So for us, we're just kind of like, yeah, okay, we're just together a little bit more. All right.
Exactly. We made a decision. I moved my entire business virtual Thanksgiving time. And then in addition, we're already first year into homeschooling. We've been doing it all year.
Awesome.
So nothing really changed along those fronts. And we've just been really focusing a shift. One thing that I see, the harmony aspect that you hit right there, to me, is hitting the nail on the head, because balancing is meant for gymnasts. It's meant for the circus.
I was a gymnast though, so look out! I might break out into a cartwheel. Okay,
hey, so I'm all about that, and that is total balance. I think that's foundationally important, to be strong and balanced. But you need to focus on coming from a place of harmony, and harmony may actually be in this time saying, all right, you know what? My kids' mental and emotional health takes priority. So if they aren't learning every little thing they need to regurgitate through school right now, totally cool. I might just hand them a nice little thing of some popcorn and say, go sit down and watch a movie, laugh your head off, and be chill.
Yep.
But what are you seeing within the day-to-day while you have to function and work, and they're now, learning independence at a whole new level?
So ours are a little bit older than yours. They're a little lot. Ours are 17. They're stepsisters. So they're junior in high school. And they don't have the infrastructure yet at their school for the online learning. So what's been interesting for us is riding the tide of uncertainty with them. It's such an important time in their high school. My one daughter is taking college classes and AP classes, and she's got her AP exams in 2 months. And she's like, we're not holding regular classes right now. How am I going to be prepared for this? So she's feeling a lot of that stress of the mixed messages and the teachers who can't actually give assignments because not all the students can do it. So that's the level of chaos that we've had to sort of manage with them emotionally. And just, I think for us, it's been the reminder that we are with them 1,000 step of the way, that they have our support no matter what, that we will help them figure this stuff out, that the educational system is scrambling to figure out whatever they can figure out, and we will follow suit. And in the meantime, our one daughter, very creative, loves graphic design. So we have had her sort of busy keeping that going. And we got her this book that actually causes you to, it really sort of forces you to expand your creativity. So it has all of these cool things that you can practice and try. So we have her mind sort of expanding that way. My other daughter, my birth daughter, is actually thinking she's going to start with a yoga teacher training that's online.
Nice.
So, and she's the one who is very fiery, go-getter. So I'm like, yes, you could use more of the breathing and the meditation and the yoga anyway, which we usually do yoga together. So we're finding ways that are really nourishing on mind, body, spirit level, particularly because there is so much unknown with their education right now. We don't really know. And they're in a hybrid year-round school. So they keep talking about when the kids go back to school in the fall, our girls will go back in July. So I have no idea what that's going to look like.
Wow. And then besides, the education system, there's just as much uncertainty right now going on within the economic system, within people's businesses, within entrepreneurs. I deal with a lot of busy leaders like yourself. And what are you guiding people towards? What are you seeing, and how are you helping people find their center right now?
Right. And I think you just said it, actually, finding their center. I think that's the most critical piece for all of us and any of us right now, is to, it's another cliche that I think is really coming to life, but to really be present. I think it's so easy to get spun up in the uncertainty and spun up in the what's going to happen. There is no amount of worry and questioning what is going to happen that is going to be productive on any level.
Right.
So I think honestly, for many people right now, getting a little bit more quiet, finding that breathing technique or that yoga practice or that, whatever they can do on all levels, find something physical to get some of that energy out, find something that's mentally interesting, find something that's spiritually nourishing so that they can really bring their mind, body, spirit together and find that center. Because I believe that the decks are really being cleared here so that we can recreate something new. And if we really want to create something new, then we cannot be coming from an old place.
Yes.
And if we're living in anxiety, we are likely coming from an old place. So it isn't until we really get into this new version of ourselves that we are all becoming, that we will actually be able to chart the trajectory of where it is that we want to go and where the world is asking to take us.
I love it. I'm a firm believer that nothing happens by chance, and you can pull lessons out of each one. So I know you have a very fascinating direct connection to energy as a clairvoyant, and I would love to hear. I had a question I've kind of put out through the social media communities and getting some pretty interesting answer, but I would love to hear yours to this, which is, if this virus was a college professor, what would he be teaching?
Oh, that's funny. Oh, I love that question. That's so good. Um, I actually believe it would be probably a philosophy teacher teaching oneness.
Yes, yes. I know you have a phenomenal video going on right now explaining what is going on in terms of us moving towards oneness, but which we'll make sure we provide all you friends a good link to. But if you wanted to sum it up in a couple paragraphs or sentences or whatever,
Yeah.
how would you explain or feel like where we're moving towards philosophically towards oneness?
So the way that I see it, for those of you who are familiar with the chakra system, I see that even personally, we develop our chakra system through different stages of development. It's a lot like the brain, like when we're born, we have this brain, but we go through different stages of development, and it isn't fully functioning until we're a little bit later in life. Do we have a brain the whole time? Yes. When we're born, it's very similar with the chakra system. We have our chakras, and I'm really talking about the 7 major chakras. If you've taken yoga classes, you've probably heard from them. You don't need to be a chakra specialist to understand what I'm talking about, I promise. But what I started seeing as someone who really works with individuals with this lens of the stages of development through the chakras, I've been looking at it from the collective lens for a very long time. And what I have seen is really that the root chakra was 1950s and prior to that, and so on and so forth. Again, I want to keep it just brief for the sake of this conversation. But where it really lands us is that, more recently, we've very much been in the 6th chakra, which is where the dark night of the soul is. And I've been saying this for a while, that this is where we have been sort of cosmically, where we've been globally, certainly in the United States, which is really a place where we have to, or we're forced to question our perceptions. There can be a lot of that polarity, because there's a lot of beliefs that go like this, and that there's the old that starts to dissolve, but it dissolves loudly. So that's a very 6th chakra experience. And I've been saying for a while, we're just sort of waiting to pierce through the crown chakra. And so I've been saying this for a while, and it wasn't actually until last week where I had a horrible fever for 2 days, and I had a splitting headache, and I kept saying, I've never understood the idea of splitting headache. Like and I literally feel like my head is splitting. And it was like, oh my God, my head is splitting. Coronavirus, crown. Corona means crown. And it just was this cascade of, this is what I have been talking about all this time, and it's finally here. And so I started to see all of the different paradoxes, and all of these different 7th chakra experiences are exactly what it is that we're going through right now and what's being organized. And so I really see, in short, that this is pushing us into that tipping point of this global consciousness that is really rising and has been for a while. I mean, this has been percolating for a while. This was not like an overnight gig. But that's exactly how I see this happening. So yes, is there a lot of chaos? Absolutely. Is it totally uprooting and ungrounded? Yes. Or ungrounding? Yeah, those are root chakra experiences. It's very ungrounding. That is the nature of this. But where we're going to find ourselves is in the next level of a root chakra experience. So we'll go back to the first, and that's where we get to recreate from this higher level of consciousness.
I couldn't agree more. I've seen plenty of interesting signs. The more intuitive I've allowed myself to be, which is like, wait, strike.
Yes.
And everything that's coming in that is strike is literally right now, which is a fascinating feeling. And it's not strike in the way that most people look at strike, as if one, you're hitting someone or something, or two, you're striking to win or go to war, but it's like to wake up.
Yes. Yeah.
And what everyone is having some form of noticing some interesting things that are coincidental, or in some cases they're starting to think, well, maybe conspiracy, or maybe things along those lines. And to me, what I think is first and foremost most important is the tapping into intuition. Now, for someone who's an expert as that, which is one thing that I think you could bring a lot of great insight for people. Let's take the absolute beginner who barely, if they even know what intuition is, or they've kind of heard it. How could you recommend somebody learn how to tap into their intuition at a basic level and then make it really practical and apply it into their day-to-day decision making?
So, I mean, I think the easiest example that is so relatable is the gut hunch, or the gut feeling, or just that knowing. Some people feel less and they're like, I can't explain it. I just know. I just know. And I think that that's universal. I think we're all very intuitive. I think to varying degrees, we've sort of shut it down, but it's something that we all come here with. It's really our just divine right. It's how we're made. Animals are very intuitive. They just don't have these things that mess it up for them. So really using it in practical ways is, I find, if you're really just starting to learn, and you want to see how it can work in your life, is first, it helps to look at the ways that certain things aren't working in your life. It's great to identify the places that either you're not happy or you feel like you could be more fulfilled. And then go into a place of just inquiry. Just ask yourself, what would it be like if I made this choice? What would it be like if, or how would I feel if I chose to create this business, or pivot my business this way, or have that hard conversation with my partner about this? And start to feel what comes up for you. There's what I would call resonance. There will be this higher understanding, whether it's something you just know, or this is one of my favorites, called a cleat-on, where maybe you overhear a conversation and it's exactly what you needed to hear, or a song comes on the radio that is the message. That's the best. Or if you are someone who feels, you will probably have some kind of physical sensation. So just pause. You don't even have to take action. Just pause and listen to it and ask, okay, and then what? Or what else would you like me to know? Because I find for most people, when they start really listening and having the intention of even asking these bigger questions, the more important questions, is that it really starts to open up intuition. Intuition, again, is with all of us. It's just waiting for us to acknowledge it and to start to pay attention. And it's going to get louder and louder and louder. It's not hard.
Yes. For me, it's definitely auditory.
Cool.
You hear a thing over and over and over in 8 million different ways, or see things and then check it. And it's kind of like your parents are watching you at home on your party on a webcam. And it's like, if you knew that they saw everything that was going on, they could tell you not to burn the house down. You're like, oh, right. I wish I knew you were at the party. Like, tell me the webcam is there.
Seriously. That's awesome.
energy is such an interesting concept these days. Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
saying, well, everything is energy. And I got a really interesting analogy that I just came across in the last little bit. And with you being an expert in energy, I think you may be able to offer some good insight here, because we talk about keeping your immune system up, keeping your energy levels up, and also really tapping into the idea that we all are energy. And the analogy that I just came across was when you walk into a room after two people have just finished having a fight, when you're a kid and you're like, ooh, what's wrong in here? Or forget even when you're a kid, right now, if you walk in a room and there's like a couple having a little spat, they could literally not be making a face, not be saying anything. You could not even see their faces, but you feel it.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I think that's a pretty easily relatable one. But I would love to hear maybe some of your thoughts on energy, feeling
Mm-hmm.
energy, tapping into energy, and maybe some ways people can become more energy literate.
Yeah. So I'll be brief about this, but I think of another example because it's funny. As much of an energy person as I am, I always like the tangible. I always love things that are sort of quantifiable. And there is a study I don't remember what it's called, but if you could easily Google and find the full story. But there was a man, and they were doing this test intentionally, a man who put his saliva in a petri dish, and someone took his saliva like across the country. They put his favorite candy bar in front of him while his saliva was being monitored under a microscope, and his saliva across the country actually had the effect that it was seeing this candy bar. Okay.
Wow.
This is legitimate, and there are many examples of
Yes.
because that has been done over and over and over again in a variety of different ways. That is energy. That is showing the true connectivity of everything.
Right.
And so I really find that it's sort of similar to what I said before, but just intentionally pausing, noticing how you feel, noticing when you meet someone new, that initial feeling before your mind tries to start to convince you otherwise. What do you actually feel, or what do you actually sense when you meet that person? That's a really big one. There's, I'm going to say this again, to me, breath work, doing any kind of breathing techniques will prime you to be able to really feel energy. Slowing down, I mean, I do think yoga with the breath is also really important. Anything that really just sort of slows down your nervous system, slows you down so that you can just become aware without forcing it. It's important not to force it. A lot of times our brains want to hijack the experience. We're like, wait, was that? And then it's like, if you're feeling that, you're just in, and you don't want to just be in your head. You really want to be fully present in all of your body and just wake up to all the different things that you sense. I actually think people sense a lot more than they realize, and that's part of why we see so many people with addiction issues, addiction to technology and food and alcohol and all of those things, is because we are all a lot more sensitive than we realize. We are feeling a lot more, and in fact, inundated at times with energy. And we haven't paused to actually give ourselves a moment to acknowledge it and be with it, and to then sort of moderate it in a way that probably our bodies and our energy systems have been asking us to do for a long time.
I really think you're so spot on. And one of the problems I see with men is acknowledging any of that is seen as a sign of weakness rather than a
Yeah.
sign of strength. Like, oh, you're sensitive, you're emotional, you can't forge through things. I used to be one of
Mm-hmm.
those, but I was also always a very energetic, emotional,
Mm-hmm.
in person. But I would let this thing try to take over to, be dedicated and determined
Yep.
until in my case it was okay. We're going to wipe the slate clean, re-wake you up again, and give you a chance to realize the power within that. So you guys coach a lot of leaders.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see within the business place implementation as far as how to tap into the okayness around sensitivity, the okayness around feeling into emotions and then letting them go? How do you guide that, and And what about for someone that you've had to guide that really grew up, I'm going to use the word brainwashed, into
Yeah.
thinking that that emotions are a sign of weakness, not strength?
Yeah. That's a great question, because it's true. I mean, there definitely, for men, this is an area where um, you essentially are running counter to culture.
Mhm.
And one of the good things I have to say about a lot of the leaders that we work with is we are in I mean, I don't even know if I like to coin it this, but we'll call it this, a more conscious space anyway.
Yeah.
And because they are leaders who are open, fortunately, even the ones who have been a little bit harder to work with on this, they understand on some level that the future of all of us is having integrated men and women. So men who are very, I'm going to use the bad word of balanced, but balanced in whatever ratio works for them in their masculine and feminine, where, you know, for men, for example, to really feel like they're coming through in from a powerful place, even if it is coming from their intuition, is to be able to fully acknowledge within themselves where it's coming from. And then they can show up in the boardroom and really hold the space for what they know and believe is true. And so I think that there is a certain way that men that we have worked with have learned to carry their intuition with almost, seems like an oxymoron, but an authority, where they like, no, I know what I'm talking about. I'm really clear, and this is the way that we need to do it. Like, trust me on this. This is where we're going. So I think that there is a way to embody that kind of authority that can feel actually even more empowering for men, because then we're also in the conversation of power versus force. I
Yes.
think a lot of men go into that forceful place. Women do too. They feel like they have to be more of a force. But when they listen to their intuition and they recognize that that is power, and then they can show up as that, it's a whole different game. Everybody responds to it differently too. And that really seems to get their attention. When their team members or their employees see a different level of power that they're showing up in, they automatically respond to them differently. And that's part of what I think is incredibly powerful about it.
It's understanding the difference between feminine energy and being effeminate.
Yes.
So for those who are new to the idea of masculine energy versus feminine energy, could you maybe give like a little bit of a
Yeah,
understanding if somebody doesn't really understand what that is?
sure. And obviously, truth be told, masculine and feminine isn't necessarily gender specific. And
Yeah.
yet, in general, we find that men tend to be more masculine and women tend to have more feminine energy.
Yeah.
But the feminine is really, it's more of like this spiral dance. It's the void, it's the unknown, it's the mystery. It's a little softer, it's a little gentler. When it's imbalanced, it's more manipulative, it's more hyper emotional, where it's almost irrational. That's an imbalanced feminine energy. Masculine, when they're balanced, there is this lock and loaded aim, there is initiative, there is focus, there is this just beautiful fierceness in a balanced way without
Mhm.
burning everybody. And then in the imbalanced, that masculine energy, it can be overly aggressive, can be maybe a little bit more anger, more quick to violence, more hot tempered, more of that force versus power. And so it's really the qualities of being and how we show up. And so when we're talking about intuition, which is more of a feminine quality, it is part of that integration, I believe, that we are all headed towards, of learning how to, okay, I'm tapping into my intuition and now I'm going to take action. Action is more masculine, feminine is more passive. So I'm going to bring it in and then I'm going to move and then I'm going to pause and then I'm going to bring it in and then I'm going to move. That's a beautiful masculine and feminine dance that we're all fully capable of, no matter what we call it.
And I really think as as a society, coaching a lot of women, I've seen so many women in the workplace feel like they have to be hyper masculine to get
Yes.
respect.
Yep.
So they look at their own femininity as a weakness that can't show up and be respected in the workplace.
Yep.
And with what's going on right now, where so many men and women are having to be at home, see what their wives really do during a day if they're trying to take care of it. And I think the idea of a stay-at-home mom now is getting really good clarity for a lot of people to understand the intensity of what that actually involves as a 24/7 job.
Yeah.
But what are you seeing, or what would you like? How do you typically guide when you're seeing a lot of these women who are maybe hyper masculine, not really being their authentic selves and allowing both parts of themselves to shine in the workplace and the home place and create this new level of integration?
Mm-hmm. What's interesting is what I have found is the women that I have worked with who are more on the hyper masculine side, which I am a recovering one of those. So I definitely get that song and dance, is that they tend to, when that hyper masculine fails them, they move into hyper feminine. And that's when they get manipulative and over the top emotional and start blaming and a little bit more erratic. That's an imbalanced feminine. So it's interesting because I tend to see with women more so than men, I see the pendulum swing drastically from side to side. And so my work is often teaching them and working with them on what the different options really look like, and start to sort of have them play that tape through. So it's almost like telling a story to each other, where I'll say, well, what would it be like if you said this in this way rather than that? And then they start to see, oh, okay, well, if I said it less aggressively or less emotionally, then I wouldn't alienate the people around me, or they wouldn't feel so defensive, like I'm always being critical of them. And so what they start to see is, oh, and then what's possible from there? Okay, well, I guess more teamwork and more of a sense that we belong in this together. So I think, a lot of us understand that there's power in storytelling. I find that asking questions that sort of lead them into their own way of playing a story through of what alternative options are.
Yes.
Really powerful. It's not me telling them anything, because that's crap. It's them having to engage in their own world and their own worldview. What would that look like if I could play with that a little bit? And so when it comes time to show up that way, they've got that sort of in their minds and they can play with it.
Yeah, experiential is an interesting thing. And a lot of times people think that experiential means you need to be in person doing something. But there's so much research, evidence that visualization, creative visualization, role-playing things out, it's what the best of the best athletes do. They've played every course before they've ever swung the golf stick, and they've shot every shot before they've ever played the game. The same thing applies into business. So utilizing that creative visualization, I think, is an awesome way to do things, especially now when we can't be in person with one another.
So true. And if can I add an energy element to that?
Oh yeah, please do.
When we're sort of coming from the energy world of that and the way that actually looks, is that what we're doing when we are in that creative visualization process is we are literally attuning our own vibrational frequency, our own energy system into what that will be like. And so we start to become that energetic match for that outcome. What I see happen a lot is people stay just in their minds and they're just sort of doing whatever with their minds or hoping and wishing and all of that. What I see are a lot of gaps. There's literally these energy gaps that are created so that point of connection for that manifestation, there's nowhere for it to match. So when we go into creative visualization and we become the storyteller of our life experience, we actually become the access point for what it is that we want to experience.
So kind of transitioning from that into that concept, because I think a lot of people think, okay, well, good vibes only, or you got to keep positive, but they don't even know really what they're saying. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times their positive is actually lacking empathy,
Yeah.
or just total denial.
Yes.
And they see and believe in an ideology I used to think was possible, and I have total clarity now that it is not, which is the dismantling of the illusion of compartmentalization,
Yes.
and that you can't really vibrate on different frequencies at one time. So the way I like to set that up is like the movie The Truman Show, imagining that if instead of that being random strangers, that if everyone and everything that you cared about or had any connection to could literally, as their highest selves, see and watch and root on every action and decision you made, how would you go about showing up in life?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would love to hear your take on, in relation to that. Right now, with people and with what's going on right now with COVID-19, a lot of people are shifting vibration into fear and closure and lack, and then also a lot of people are going into community and expansive. If somebody is slipping into fear and scarcity mindset, and not understanding the rippling ramifications that'll have on everything that they're doing and also on collective energy, what kind of things do you think people can do right now to get themselves back into a place of power?
I love that question. And I mean, and you say it a lot more eloquently than I do. I call what you described in that little piece as like emotional, mental, spiritual constipation. Because that's what
I love it. I love it.
It just like clogs everything up, and it's like we're not going anywhere.
Which is why we're running out of toilet paper right now. Right there. See? Yeah. Y'all are spiritually constipated.
We need to send that to the news because we just figured it out.
Done.
Yeah. So it causes constipation on so many different levels, and who likes to be constipated?
Never.
Holy moly. And unfortunately, we have been living in a world with a lot of that kind of constipation. And I think what's so important is that so many people never learned how to be in their feelings or how to process their feelings. And because of that, a lot of us fear our feelings because it's like, oh my gosh, if I feel that, we learned maybe the world crumbles or it makes someone else upset, or, whatever those stories were that we learned in our formative years, we unconsciously have taken those with us. So when it comes time to actually feel something, it's often pretty dramatic because there's a part of us that's going, oh my gosh, you're actually trying to feel something. We're going to send all of our energy right there into the anxiety of what's going on right now. And so everything is heightened because all the other feelings, or a lot of other feelings that we didn't want to feel, that never had the chance to be felt, are all being felt now. And so what I think is really, really important is that we actually give ourselves permission to feel what we're feeling.
Yes.
And I understand. I mean, there is such a difference between experiencing a feeling and becoming a feeling. And I think a lot of us fear being enveloped and just totally engulfed by this feeling and like never coming out again. But that's coming from an unhealed place. That's actually not rational or reasonable. We will come out of it. Once we allow ourselves to actually feel what we're feeling, it is amazing how much more quickly it actually passes. So like what I say is feel it. Feel it. Just feel it. Here's the thing. You also don't need to go on social media and spew it everywhere. I think that's important. I mean, I think if you have feelings and you want to share something, share it. Don't vomit it. There is a big difference between saying, wow, I'm noticing that this is where I am right now and this is really tough, versus right? So I think it's important. I think it's important, if you're someone that needs to share how you feel, please share how you feel. Feel how you feel. Talk to people, put it in a Facebook post, but be a good steward of those feelings. Be a good steward in the world, that you're dropping your energy into the collective. And so feel it, be honoring of it, and then let it go when it's time to let it go. I think we often use our emotions as like our little security blankets. because it can keep us from doing or being or feeling that next thing, whatever that is. But if we just let ourselves be present, feel the feels, let it go, whether you work it out, journal it out, breathe it out, whatever it is, however you need to process it through your mind, body, spirit, because all aspects of us have to process our feelings. That is, our whole system has to feel it and process it. Do what you need to do and then move on. Don't park there. It's a stepping stone. It is not a place to camp out.
There's so many people who utilize social media right now for an energetic hug or pity party.
Yes.
And the problem is they're just reaffirming, it's almost Pavlovian, which is complain about life, get a bunch of energetic Facebook hugs, right?
Yep.
And then all that does is amplify the victim mindset.
Yes.
and like you said, which a lot of people don't think about, is collective energy.
Yes.
So there's a huge collective energy situation going on right now with regarding the pouring the energetic lighter fluid on fear.
Yes.
And then when people are walking the line of being positive, which a lot of the people who I tend to be drawn with are pretty positive, happy people, almost being seen, and I've been dealing with this a little bit, almost being seen as, because I'm still laughing and smiling in the midst of chaos right now, that I'm not feeling anything that is going on, or that I'm non-empathetic or non-sensitive. But in reality, so much of this is worked on, trained, and aware. So I'm absolutely feeling, just like you as a fellow empath, is absolutely feeling the global collective and also the day-to-day practical stuff that is coming of this. So any suggestions or thoughts on walking that line, remaining authentic, but also putting stuff out where we can help meet people where they're at if they are in the midst of just total nuclear chaos in their minds?
Yeah. Honestly, I think calling it what it is, and saying, perfect example, like if I put up a funny post on my social media, because I do really like to keep it light, and I will often have some kind of spiritual twist in what I caption it with or whatever. I think just acknowledging that some people are really in the fear, and say, hey, for those of you who need a pick-me-up, here you go. Yeah. So that it's given in the spirit of service and acknowledgement. I see you and I see where you are. I know what it's like to be in fear. And look, there's something great over here. And some of the trauma training that I have done, which I'm not a specialist in trauma, but given that I work with people on a pretty personal level, it felt important to me to get some training in trauma. And one of the first things that we talk about is when people are traumatized, you don't necessarily stay in the trauma with them. You actually move a conversation into something of, well, what does that make you think of? What does that remind you of? Take it somewhere else. Or how does that feel in your body? And when did you feel that before? And what's another way of experiencing that? So what it does is it actually starts to show people that they can self-nurture and self-nourish themselves from a place of fear or anxiety or whatever it is that they're feeling that's challenging into a higher state of being. That they may go back to that other place, perfectly fine, but that they can be the ones who sort of cycle themselves out and nurture themselves out. That's another thing, is our ability to self-nurture a little wonky, right? Which is why we go to social media and get all the virtual hugs and all of that stuff. So I really think that for those of us who are feeling what we're feeling, but just really understand that there's a far bigger picture going on here, and nobody has all of the answers. And frankly, we don't need all of the answers. We are here now. We're doing it. We're doing what we need to do. We're being who we need to be. That's true for all of us. So I think acknowledging where everybody is and calling it out and saying, here's a little pick me up. And to me, that's like beautiful service.
Yeah. And being here now and one step at a time mindset is so imperative. An analogy that was coming to me was the idea of the Olympics. So even the triple jumpers and long jumpers are like, yeah, we're even going to take a break for a year. So like we're going to go one step at a time for right now, because we're not really energetically ready to be doing triple jumps and long jumps and breaking Olympic records. Like
right.
We're aware that right now we just need to go left foot, right foot, left, right foot, and make sure we keep momentum going.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean you need to be at full force pedal to the metal right now. I really think what we're being called to do collectively is like slow down and smell the roses for a minute.
Yeah.
Because everything that we've taken for granted can quickly be taken from us.
Yes.
Even in where we are right now, if I wanted to do my normal Torrey Pines walk that I do 4 or 5 days a week and I watch the sunset, I can be ticketed up to $5,000 or spend 6 months in jail as of last night.
Right.
Like
it's crazy, but yes.
But it's a true again, if you go with the everything happens for a reason, well, what is the reason and what is the lesson within that? Yeah. And are you living on purpose? There's a really interesting kind of segue. As I remember, Les Brown has an audio as if, what if we had to go in front of a tribunal and say, what are we contributing to society to decide if we're going to stay alive or not?
Oh my God.
And he has a really funny, like, well, I'm watching Netflix. And it's like, what are you truly living on purpose is probably the best quarantine question I think we all need to ask ourselves.
I agree.
If we're not, how can we flip that up?
Yeah. And I think it doesn't have to be anything grandiose either. I mean, I think some people, when they think of their purpose, it's like, oh, I need to go save the orphan children in, Vietnam, whatever. And it's like, no, I mean, yes, if you feel called to do that, by all means, please. But in reality, it's, for most of us, it's being in our corner of the world and doing our good work, which is being who we are and being who we feel called to be. And having a sense of that, letting ourselves really own that and give ourselves permission to be that person and live that way. The more we are ourselves, the more we are living on purpose. So I think, just to sort of add to your question, it's where am I not giving myself permission to be my full expression of self? Because I think that time is done.
And everyone who thinks that the expression that they need to put out has to be so big, and if it isn't aligning with them, look at what is happening right now to everything that we are idolizing that is outside of self-love and self-appreciation. Yep. It's all on the pause button too.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. For sure.
Every single one, the sports, the media, the creation of new entertainment. It's like anything that isn't self-love, self-appreciation, which is really at the core essence of everything, is put on hold. So to me, if I was to be a teacher right now, or I was the virus giving a class, I would say self-love time, not narcissism time, because that's not from a place of self-love.
For sure.
Not I am better than you, but it is a communal self-love, which if you are actually in a place of truly loving yourself, your fitness is in check, your nutrition is in check, your mind is in check, your care about humanity and empathy is checked. Every one of those things is in a total harmony.
Yeah, harmony takes care of itself.
It just is.
Yep.
And it's always there.
Yep. That's what I'm experiencing.
I love it. I love it. I am so happy that you joined me for this fun little convo today.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for asking. This has been fun.
Yes. Let's continue just to do what we already do, and thank all of our friends who look at us as great resources and great fellow humans who can be here as a community. So for my friends who unfortunately at this point have missed out on so many funny jokes from you and so much great insight, what's a great way that they can connect with you, learn from you, share with you, et cetera, bond and enjoy and move towards the oneness with you?
Yeah, so I'm on social media. My personal profile is just Katy Bray, and my business one is Live with the Lights On. I'm on Instagram as Katy Bray Official. Yes, there are a few other Katy Brays, and sometimes they steal my memes. I'm not even kidding. Yes, that's a story for another day. But I mean, my quotes, and they will say it's, and they spell it my way too. They have literally taken them. So it's Katy Bray Official now.
Oh My God.
Two funny. One of them is a born again Christian in like Texas or something, and I'm like, of all the people that you are stealing from, and you're still like, wait, what? On so many levels, it's hilarious. But anyway, you can find
Love
me
it.
on Facebook and Instagram, or my website is livewiththelightson.com as well.
Oh wow, that is really
Isn't that
fascinating.
funny?
It's so funny because it's such. I mean, from clairvoyant to born again. So
I know. What are
maybe
the
they were
odds?
born again as a clairvoyant.
Going to
So they're
hell
just
the good way.
they're embodying it.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, my friend. This was a ton of
Thank
fun.
you.
Let's do some of this stuff more,
Yeah.
and I'm happy that we were able to connect.
Yeah, me
Means a ton
too.
to me.
Thank you so much.